And we are live. Welcome back to the Weekly Roundup, December 8th edition. What the fuck happened to 2023? Is it just me, or is this year just like, poof? I mean, someone told me a little bit rudely that that's a sign of getting old. They're probably right, but I do feel like time is just speeding up. And I'm not sure that I love it. On the other hand, it sent me down a positive rabbit hole of researching the theory of relativity through the lens of spirituality and yoga, because yoga talks about this a lot as well. It's the concept of like where your focus and attention is and the emotional response that you not get, but give yourself to that attention and focus will change your perspective of how long or short something is. And it's a bit of a mind twist. I still have to figure it out. But I think I've definitely experienced that because I remember taking Val Sklar Robinson's hot yoga class in Pasadena after 3 days of travel and not being in a hot room for a couple of weeks, and thinking this class is the longest yoga class that has ever been taught in the history of yoga classes. And it is so hot in here that one of my eyeballs started like vibrating or something, you know, like just all the shit that can happen in a hot yoga class started happening. And then she turns and looks at me and goes, "Oh, you're going to be fine. Stop it." In the middle of the class. And then that was at maybe the halfway mark. And I went, "Oh, okay." And then the rest of the class was like gone. It was just over all of a sudden. So there you go. Also great teacher, Val, that is. All right, what are we talking about? I want to start off with a couple of win stories, obviously just coming out of the Black Friday through Cyber Monday stuff, etc. There's been some interesting conversations that have come out from this. We've had a lot of people obviously having success, having sales, whatever. A few people who went the other direction and like didn't sell things and seeing how that has impacted their studio. But the two things I wanted to point out are just perspective. So on two occasions, I had one owner say to me, they had intended to do some Black Friday things. They actually did need to like build up a little bit of cash flow coming into January here, etc. But then they just kind of didn't get their shit together. So literally on like the Thursday before Black Friday, they wrote and sent out one email, and they made $2,400 in like 3 hours. They went go on Friday morning. They made $2,400 off of the simple little package they made, and that was it. But the energy behind their comment was that that was some sort of a fail, or that like it wasn't good enough, or they didn't do as much as they could have. And I said, but listen to what you just said. You sent one email and produced $2,400. Like, how many people do you know can send one email and do that right now? Not many. Like, that's actually really good. So sure, if you want to do more in the future, you should do that. But like, that was a positive thing. Same thing. Another owner I was speaking to made the comment that their Black Friday was a lot less successful, and they were trying to determine like, what is it that happened and how come it didn't hit as well as it did before. And I said, well, what happened? And they said, well, we only made $21,000 on Friday, and last year we made 27. I was like, can you just like say that again out loud to yourself and then tell me, then ask me what the question is again. So I just think it's a good time of year as well as you're closing your year out, despite all of the things that I'm sure many of you see in front of you and are excited about for the next year. And you, I'm sure, have that ever-going list of things that you're going to do and how you're going to build your business and where you can improve and what needs to happen, and etc. You also just have to remind yourself very consciously to take stock of what has happened as positive. Notice where you're winning. Give yourself the space and the time to feel that. We get a little too caught up. Sometimes we're so focused on the destination and the work towards it, then you miss all the good stuff that's happening on the path towards it. So this is my quick rant for a second. Go ahead, Terry.
So also a client win too. I had a client that fell in the camp of saying, I'm not doing anything for Black Friday. and she and her family went out of town, visited her brother in wherever it was. And even without doing a Black Friday sale, November was her best month ever in the entire history of her yoga studio.
Fuck yeah.
She broke a big, like a major goal for herself and her team. And this was without doing a Black Friday sale. So it's like, it was very strategic. She's like, I don't feel like, I said, just because it's like, the definition of sanity is like, as my hashtag Terry's dad, if everybody's jumping off the cliff, are you going to jump off the cliff with them without knowing what's going on? Kind of, and probably you guys know me. Yeah, I probably would. But the point
I was going to say, Terry, that sounds like something you would do though. But
I know. But
you're like,
anyway,
wait, is it fun when we jump off the cliff?
of course, it's always fun when you jump off the cliff. It's just,
If it's fun,
if it's
then
fun,
maybe.
it's like, Butch Cassidy, the Sundance Kid. Hell, kid, the fall is going to kill you. But anyway, so the point being is, strategically said, I'm not doing Black Friday, and still had the best month ever. So I think it kind of goes into, you don't always have to have a sale, right? If you're leaning into the things that work for your studio and really putting the work and the effort behind that, then if you're constantly running promos, then there might be some lessons to be learned there.
Well, and that's just success in another way. It demonstrates success. But that's the point. What you're saying right now, like if you're that owner, whether November is your biggest month ever or not, like if you got to take time off with your family during that time instead of worrying about a sale, and that recharged you or whatever, like notice that win too.
Yeah.
You own a business where that decision is within your direct power and control. Either way, that's a special thing. Go ahead, Vicky.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the thing that I've seen is for a thing like Black Friday, when there are these offers around, and when it's become so big and prevalent, it's everywhere, even in Europe now. It didn't used to be a few years ago, but now it is. And people are in that mindset of there's going to be deals around, and they're ready to spend. And here in Sweden, it falls on payday as well. Everyone gets paid on the same day in Sweden. It's always 25th. So it's like they make it happen, of course, on payday. But anyways, the comment that I've heard is kind of the unexpected people that this brings out, this general mood of good deals being around, and unexpected people buying packages. People you've not seen in the studio for like 6 years. Suddenly they're here committing to a 1-year package. And just wondering, if there wasn't such a thing as Black Friday, would they be coming back? Or is it, they're just they're really attracted to the deal thing? And when you have it, maybe, now that they've bought the package, maybe they will keep coming to yoga the whole year. And, that's awesome. But I think, it can be, the point, I guess, is it can be a really good thing to actually make use of it. It's there anyways. Everyone's spending, everyone's got deals on. So yeah.
There is some benefit in like going with the flow. I think it's both. To Terry's point, like you can go counterculture, or just because someone's doing something doesn't mean you have to do it. And if there's just a general energy towards something and it feels right to you, going with it is also beneficial. So that's I guess a personal ownership decision for this specifically. Vicky, you're making me think of like, it would be so fascinating in those studios where that's happening to go in and try to look at the communication log with those people. Like, is it that they were gone and they like have been opening emails, or like, did someone reach out to them, or was there like a, we miss you? Did anyone call them? Did they get like, has any of that been happening and they've just been ignoring it? And then this was the impetus that like got them back in, or?
I think it's like there is always, my theory anyways, is that there's always this group of people who keep opening your emails and they don't do anything. And then suddenly they will. This is why email list is valuable. And, you're going to get just a lot of people just not reacting. And then suddenly you do something and it's like, they were there, they were listening, they were watching the whole time. And now suddenly I did something that made them react.
And you're keeping them warm in doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Case in point, I've been following this yoga teacher from the Bay Area, oh gosh, for 20 years now. He's an Iyengar teacher, and I used to take some Iyengar classes back in the day with him. I actually changed his mind about Bikram yoga. This is early on days, but anyway, I haven't seen Howard since probably 2004 or 5, right before I left for Bikram teacher training. But yet I'm still on his email list, and I don't open every email, but I still do open his emails. He does a lot of retreats, and I've always been thinking maybe one day I'll do one of his retreats.
Yeah,
right?
you're
So,
going to be that person. You're just
I'm
going to
gonna be that
randomly book his
person.
retreat, and he's going to be like, "Who the fuck is this?
Who the fuck is this?" Right? But because his emails are, when I do open them, they're compelling, they're nicely written, and he's a lovely human being. And every time I think about unsubscribing, I'm like, I remember Howard. I'm like, ooh, I don't want to unsubscribe from Howard. I don't want to, I still want to be on his email list. So there is definitely some value. You just never know when someone might like book the thing.
Oh,
That
dude, we're on a little bit of a tangent here in such a good way from what we're going to talk about. Carol, I think you'll get what I'm about to say. Terry, here's the follow-up question to what you're saying. You're describing, correct me if I'm wrong, that you feel good about Howard. So if you were like, I want to learn something about Iyengar yoga, or I want to do some Iyengar yoga, where's the first place you're going to go?
Howard.
Right? Like there's nowhere else that even exists but Howard. Even if that leads you down a path that you don't end up working directly with him, that's going to be the first place you go. That's the top of mind internal warm audience marketing that every studio wants to have. Carol, where I think you and I probably participate a little bit more is like, if we talk about TikTok or Instagram Reels or whatever, for me, I don't personally go on social media very much other than business, except asterisks. If I want to like totally like melt my brain for an hour, I really do like TikTok. Straight up, it's fucking got me. Their algorithms got me. They've won. So, but anyways, there are people that I follow on TikTok or people that I've watched on YouTube that are, in my mind, a subject matter expert around one or two specific things. And this has actually happened. One of them, actually on 2 occasions, we've hired people, but one of them recently I had a meeting with or whatever. And it's like, it was because as soon as I had the real need and desire to do the thing that I thought they were an expert at, I didn't even Google search anymore. I didn't look for anyone else. I just went directly straight only to that person. Like they have bypassed all the other steps for me altogether. So I think by extension, I would just also add that this like top of mindness can be in these other places. I don't care. What do you think?
I mean, it makes me think of this client we've all been discussing that is planning to open a location soon. And we were talking about like they did an announcement they already have a community built up to some degree, but we were trying to figure out other ways to keep them really engaged over the next few months as this new location is being built. And so we were all talking about is you have to stay top of mind. What if you went live every day, for whatever reason? Maybe it's just a tip or trick, maybe it's a class that you actually run online, but it is being top of mind. And maybe people don't see every post, obviously, like it's hard to keep up with that, but over time you're just building up a lot of goodwill and staying on everyone's radar and becoming the experts in that town. So and Josh had made a good point of like, what if you did that every day and saw what really popped the best and like was really received well by your community, and you boosted that. Like just keep like doing the same things in that capacity. So yeah, it is the emails going out in the same way. Like there are places, just like Terry, there are people and places that I get emails from every single day, and I think sometimes I should just unsubscribe, but at the same time I really like that company or I like that person, and I'm the exact same way. Like I will, go through the burden of like deleting a ton of emails because it's that one time that I want to get one from them, and I will click on it and actually go down that rabbit hole of like buying or reading or whatever it is. So keep putting that content out there.
Yeah, the top of mind, I mean, with emails especially too, I think, one, as soon as you learn how to zero inbox, then that burden changes. But yeah, it's a value. If someone's giving you their attention, that's like the most valuable thing they can give you upfront. So, but they can't give you their attention if you don't ask for it. You have to be, there's a balance point of how you ask for it. You start, that's why like text message marketing is starting to ruin text messages, which is really unfortunate because it's like too close to home, too personal. But an email is now considered a softer place to appear, especially if your stuff is good. Or like that is sort of the benefit of social media, where they still have to choose to participate in the content that you're putting there. So because they retain control, it doesn't maybe cross a specific line. But that's how you ask for that attention and then end up staying top of mind and continuing to build value in someone's mind about your business and what you do. Go ahead, Vicky.
So different topic, kind of. I have questions that relate to websites. So Carol can maybe give some answers. So I was thinking about what route do people take to buy and pay for that first class that they take at your studio? Like what are the steps? What's the exact, where do they go? I think that schedule page and pricing page, they are the most looked at pages for a yoga studio. It's what I've heard, I think. We want to drive them to like an intro sales page. Intro first month offer if you're direct to membership. We want to drive them there. We in our coaching, we do everything we can to just drive all first timers to this curated page that sells them on that offer. So we want all the first timers to buy that offer. But that's well and good. That page is, it's probably great. And it's going to give them the information. They're going to understand clearly what it is. If it's direct to membership, it's going to say that. Then it's going to say what the price is of that first month, and they're gonna understand it. But what if they come from the schedule page? And do they come from the schedule page?
I think that's a really good question, Vicky, and I think that's why. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, what happens, because now I've seen a couple of, well, I think like 3 examples of where they're taken. That specifically, I'm talking for students that have direct to membership. The next step then, like if they don't go to that, if they go from schedule page and then that takes them to, like, they click book now, it's going to take them to basically the branded web or whatever. It's like, now it's the payment for something. It's going to present them with some options. In Moments, I think it always puts the drop-in on top, if I'm not wrong. If it doesn't, it's going to only allow you to get the first month half price with a promo code, which I kind of hate, because you want to see that cheap price. You don't want to see the expensive price and then have a promo code. Talking to someone who has B spots, and we kind of rearranged the whole plan of what they were going to do, and because they could present it in a good way if they went direct to membership, but it was still like promo code thing. Mind body, there's like extreme math. It's like this price minus this first month price equals this. So yeah, you can kind of sit down and really focus and understand it, sure, but it's like it's not like quick and easy and understand it like that. So sorry, Carol.
Oh no, that's okay. I think that, like, if your website is designed intelligently, they wouldn't be coming from the schedule page to purchase. Like, our whole concept is that we are going to be very clear. If you're a beginner, start here and take them through this whole journey of how to purchase first. Then they get directed to, like, now you're going to book, and so if they're getting to your schedule page first and then having to kind of choose through these all of these pricing options and it's confusing, there's probably some kind of disconnect there and you've lost them on the journey. So, and how did they even get to the schedule page in the first place? Is that what's front and center on your homepage? Shouldn't be just telling you to come to the webinar.
But they just want to know the schedule because they want to know if it fits with their work. So maybe they search, maybe they, even though you're not putting them on the schedule page, maybe they root around and find it because they just want to know what times you have.
Yeah, I could see that. It's also Terry and Josh are hands raised. You guys weigh in.
Well, I think one of the things Vicky's alluding to as well is how much, if someone goes to your website, it's the same as them walking in your doors. When someone walks in your doors, you should have a plan for what you're going to say to them. And you're going to curate an experience for them and give them some direction towards booking a class and purchasing whatever your intro or first offer is. Your website essentially wants to accomplish the same thing, but then depending on the system you use, you have to go through the parameters of the system, the mind body, the wall of the moments, the whatever, and you're limited by its capabilities. So to Vicky's point, I agree. I think you're right, Vicky. You have to use a promo code. It always presents the drop in first in moments. And it's like, you can't change that. That's not flexible within the system. This has been a problem forever in the industry. It has, in fact, gotten a lot better than it was. We're 1,000% better than it was 10 years ago. And we're still half of the way to what modern marketing and sales online should look like. So it's just an example of how like yoga and boutique fitness has always been a decade back of what would be considered normal or cutting edge. So I think really good, clear communication and proper pathways, as Carol's alluding to, is the first step. But the outside of the box thought here is going back to, what if you formulate your entire website with that objective being so clear to get people to your first month of membership or your intro, that it's essentially the only thing you can do on the website, and you don't even send them to moments at all. You run the sale through something else altogether. And this has always been something that we've talked around. Very few, it has happened in the industry, very few people have done it, but it would look like this. You would go there, there'd be a checkout page that you design through an e-commerce element of things. They purchase in Stripe or in PayPal or something like that. And then you would need to build a Zapier automation on the backside that immediately sends that to a Google Sheet and pings somebody on your team, who then manually puts them into the mind-body system and or follows up with a text message or rings them up and gets their class scheduled. So there's more administrative lift behind the scenes, but the theory would be, does that make the purchasing checkout flow so tight and seamless that then you actually close sales when someone's on your website, knowing that that's a big deal? I don't know, but it's something certainly Carol and I talk about and that we all think about quite a bit.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I've been on my continuing quest for fitness, and I have noticed that like some of the websites I've been visiting, it's sales. It's 100%. There's no pricing. There is no schedule. It's all about why I want to do this thing, whatever it is, how important it is, what's my transformation going to be, and click here to get started. Right. And that's it. And so every single page is, and there's multiple pages, but every single page is a sales page. And so, and obviously they're successful because I did it and I'm there and I'm doing the deal. I'm doing their intro thing. And what's interesting, I'm like 2 weeks in, still haven't heard a word about what happens next. I've been getting like text messages and emails, you're doing great, that kind of thing, checking in and all that kind of stuff. But nothing about what's the next step. And the other thing I want to point out is that I went to class last Saturday. It was a mobility class. A young woman by name of April was teaching it. And I have to think she probably was a cheerleader when she was younger. She just kind of has that. But she walked right up to me. First thing she came right up to me, stand right in front of me and said, Hi, I'm April. I don't know you. What's your name? And I was just like, because I've talked about before, I've been to multiple studios where nobody, I mean, it's like very rare that the teacher will actually come up and introduce themselves to you. And so the fact, I mean, like that scored huge points right there. But just the fact that she just stood right in front of me and just looked me in the eye, introduced herself. I don't know you. What's your name? Bye, Vicky. But I was very impressed by that, obviously. But anyway, so there we have it. It's like, do you even need a full web page with about us and class descriptions and teacher bios and all of this other stuff? Or maybe it's a completely separate website that is not the one that's your search. It's more the one that's your search is merely your sales page. Because
yeah, it's an interesting thought, because it's also, there's been so much talk forever on SEO, and to say that SEO isn't a thing would not be true, especially in a local environment. There is a localized SEO thing that's going on. The problem is that's a moving target a little bit, and I don't know, like, unless you're gonna really, if you're in a city and you're like gonna win in the city, but then also you have a citywide product, then the SEO part is suppressed in its potential power for you. Like, you're not a state or nationwide business if you have a single location brick and mortar yoga studio. So you need to show up in search for sure, but you can also solve that with Google ads and other things, and probably the volume of people going to your site and the clarity of a couple pages does almost as much as having a big website with 15 pages on or something like that. So then, to your point, Terry, like, what is the value in the other stuff? Does it really matter? Can you move that to other places to communicate instead and make your site tighter and easier? But also, I wanted to mention on the sales side of things, what you're highlighting is really fascinating. When we do sales boot camps, which, by the way, if you haven't booked a sales boot camp for next year, there's only a few spots left. Like, we have a very specific schedule for when they can happen. There's only a few left. Terry and or Kara will come to your studio and whip your team into shape in 3 days. Every single person who did sales boot camp, every single studio without fail, 30 to 60 days afterwards, we went back and looked, like, at least added 50% more, if not doubled their sales team's output after a sales boot camp this last year. So
in
anyways,
fact, many of them have paid for themselves within the first couple of months in additional sales.
yeah, or less than
Or
that.
more.
I think in one case, it was like 2 weeks later, they had doubled their money back or something. So I digress. The point would be, we talk in the sales bootcamp about how all buying decisions are made emotionally first and then backed up with logic. So from a larger sales funnel approach, inclusive of your website, and to Terry's point, the objective is get someone to your first offer, your intro, and get them in practicing with you. And then during that time practicing with you, the technical details of what happens next and the pricing only matters once they are emotionally connected to the transformation that you are offering them, and you've decided you're going to continue. Because, Terry, here's the question for you based on what you said. They made a good connection with you. You're liking the classes. Let's say you're like, I like this. It's a good community I want to be in, whatever. Unless the price is totally fucking bananas, does it matter what they offer you next?
I already bought a shirt, a branded t-shirt.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I already bought some merch, you know.
Already in.
I've already met a woman. It turns out that she literally is, if the house across the street from me wasn't there, I could see her house. That's how close she is. She's about my age. She likes to walk. So now I have a walking partner in my neighborhood. And, you know, so that's the point for me. I mean, yes, I could do all of this stuff in my basement. We talk about this all the time. I have everything I need to work out in my basement. I've got all the weights, all the things. I got a chin up bar. I got a step up. The only thing I'm missing is a stationary bike. I got everything else. And I can do that totally. But like we say in the Yoga Sales Boot Camp, where is the yoga studio? They're the third place, right? If I want to do for free, I could be online. I'm going because I want to meet people. I want to have a connection and meet people. And because, you know, so anyway, so yeah, it's like, Yeah.
Right. But the point being, that's the third
Yes.
space.
Yes.
It offers this for you. If the product's good and they're engaging and you feel comfortable there, the price and like the next step doesn't matter.
Unless it's
Like
like
the technical,
really,
logical stuff doesn't matter. Yeah.
no, unless it's like insanely, and I kind of have a price in my head and we'll see what it comes back with. It's so funny. I don't know about you guys, but it's like when I'm thinking about something like, okay, I sort of have this is how much I kind of want to spend on this thing. And if it's in that price, then I'm like, oh, this is great. Like back in the day when I moved my house, I wanted to get my hardwood floors refinished. And I had this price in my mind about how much I thought it was going to be. It was just a made up price. I had no idea what it cost to refinish hardwood floors. But when the guy came back with me with the quote, I was like, oh, it was below what I thought it was in my head. And I'm like, sure, I'll do it.
Right.
Right.
You'd already anchored against something else.
And it was totally irrational because I hadn't like gotten quotes on anything. I just thought, oh, how much money am I willing to spend on getting my hardwood floors refinished? And then when the guy came back with like I said, it was a couple of $1,000s less. I was thinking it was going to be somewhere in there with $6,000 to $7,000 to get my hardwood floors refinished, and it was like $4,200. I'm like, oh, that's a deal.
He doesn't even know you've done all your sales work for him.
Here's my deposit. And plus, he was so busy that it was 6 months before he even was able to get them done. I said, no problem.
Well, I think by extension, one of the things that we're talking around here too, it's like price is only relevant relative to the perceived value of the thing that we're purchasing. So if you thought I would be willing to pay $5-6 grand and now it comes in at 4, that's a surplus of value. If I'm practicing at your studio and I love it and I love the community and I feel good and I really notice that and you know me by name and we're engaged, and then you give me the price, like at that point, it's just kind of within my means or not. And I would just say that it works the other way, because hardwood floor example, you thought, okay, I think it's gonna be 6 grand. If he came in at 7 grand, you'd probably be like, I don't know, I really do want it. You know, like you'd go through that process. Same thing. If I'm thinking, oh, it should be $110 a month for a yoga membership, and you're like, it's $120, it's unlikely that that's going to make or break anything if I'm connected to what's happening. I want to be there. You know, even further, this is exactly why I can still remember when Orange Theory was like its biggest growth moment, and all these studios were kind of freaking out about it. And they were like, I don't understand how we can't charge over $89 and $99 without having someone scoff at it. They're just entering the market and charging $170. This is why, because their sales funnel and conversation and how they interacted with people and all of these elements and the perceived value is there. Is it because they got a different market of people that have more money than the ones coming into your yoga studio? No way. Maybe a little bit, but not really. So anyways, I digress. Sales element, website leads you to it, making sure that you're putting the value in front of people ahead of everything else. We do have a webinar coming up. When is it?
The 19th.
On the 19th, Carol will be running it, talking about exactly what we're talking about: websites, how to build a proper website. What do we know? I mean, one thing that's cool about the websites that Carol's building is that not only has Carol herself obviously been in the industry for 2 decades of time and seen a lot and built her own website and now multiple other ones and etc. She's also using the templates that the team and I have developed over the years, and we're constantly like tweaking and seeing what's happening and working. And so the approach that Carol, I'm sure, will be talking about isn't going to be, here's how you make like a super beautiful looking website so that you can feel like your ego feels great, that it looks nice and blah, blah, blah. And instead be, how do you build a functional website that's like your virtual digital storefront that actually converts and helps people actually get into your studio? That's the purpose of it. Because not that it won't also be beautiful, but in the end, you have the most beautiful website in the world. It's all fancy and does neat stuff. But if you wanted to actually convert people, that's not exactly the same objective. So outside of the box sales thought, I wanted to get your guys' input on this. I don't see studios doing this, but this conversation came up yesterday with a client who has a very clear goal. They want to sell their business in 2 years from now. We can see in their KPIs where their focus needs to be, et cetera. And one of the things that they need to, or they have opportunity to improve upon, is their primary sales funnel itself. And there are a few ways to do that, but we were debating different pricing, different sales models. So one of the things was how you actually present what you're selling and creating a situation where there can be a deeper conversation. So you go to the website, you book your first week free or whatever else as an example, just for the sake of talking. The person's in, they're practicing, and then there's going to be a sales conversation with that person. And that's like the second goal. So goal 1 is get in the studio and practice. Goal 2 is get them to this conversation, whether that's at the desk, on the phone, or at a scheduled time, because we know that that is a more powerful interaction for them to make the decision on what they purchase, if they purchase, but also what they purchase. And it also creates a situation where if someone says no, then at least you know that you've got the no. One of the things that we see in studios all the time is, one of the last studios Carol and I was at, Carol came up with the idea and really like sat down, and I think you like wrote down how many times did someone use someone's name, how many times did they engage with someone at the desk or whatever, and became really obvious that a huge part of the missed sales in that studio, and this would be across all of them really, weren't because people were interacting and then pitching something and then the person was like, no thanks. It's because they weren't interacting and pitching something. Like that didn't happen at all. So that objective alone, I think, makes a big deal. But here's the thought. You sell your unlimited. So you sell your membership as, yes, it's unlimited classes, but you're selling it as how many times a week are you practicing, and let's build your schedule. I'm going to sign you up. When do you want to practice? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? Okay. At 5 p.m. after work, those are the times you're going to practice yoga. Great. I'm going to book you into that class. Let me take a look. That class right now has 3 more spots available. Let's solidify those spots for you. And you buy the membership for it. And they're like, well, what if I don't make it on a Wednesday? Well, it's unlimited. Like, come on a Saturday. It doesn't matter. Like, you can just jump into any other class that had space, but there's a limit on our class spaces, and we're putting people in slots and building that schedule for them. It's like more curating the actual commitment to the practice part of it, is the thought that we were talking around. And it creates that supply and demand element of the conversation where, like, if you have 20 spots and you build it this way, you'll be able to say like, oh, well, our prime slots are pretty full right now. There's only 1 spot left, kind of thing, which is true for many studios. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
I like that idea, but the thing I keep thinking about is making sure all of this stuff is really good. And I think this is another hiccup or opportunity I see, and at studios, particularly given all the on-sites we've done this year, is somewhat of a scarcity mindset by the owner and wanting to have as few staff members as possible to be at the studio to check people in. And, it's like a teacher in a front desk, or sometimes it's just a teacher. And because it's like, I can't afford to have more staff there. And so let's flip that thought on its head, is like, you can't not afford to have more staff there. Because I've seen this a lot now. Now, I haven't done as many on-sites as Josh has done, but just in the half a dozen or more that I've done this year, that to me is like one of the single biggest opportunities that is lost in yoga studios. And I see it certainly in KPIs for sure, is not enough staff there to make sure that all this stuff is happening and to have those conversations. Because I know there's data to back this up. You could have the best sales funnel in the world. You could spend a lot of money hiring top-notch people to write content and all this stuff. And it still comes down to, in my humble opinion, that personal connection right there at the front desk, right there with the teacher, right there in the yoga room, what happens before class, what happens after class. Those are the things that, again, I feel are of utmost importance, paramount importance. And because of sometimes the scarcity mindset is, I can't afford to hire this person. Are you you're limiting yourself? I mean, are you actually limiting yourself in what you can achieve by just, if you beefed up the staff a little bit, would that staff not pay for itself pretty darn quick? And I'm going to say that yes, it will. And I hear this so much from some of my clients. It's like, why did I wait so long to hire desk staff? Why didn't I do this sooner? And so if you're falling into that, I can't afford it, I would challenge you to figure out how you can afford it. And since it's a sales position, right? Customer sale is like, you do the math. It's like, how many memberships would they have to sell to cover themselves? If it's part-time, say you're paying 25 out, let's just go top notch, $25 an hour. They're working 10 hours a week at your most popular classes. That's $250 times 4.2 weeks in a month, which is like a little over $1,000. You throw in some employment tax, you're talking about $1,500 a month. And if your membership is $100, simple math, all they have to do is sell 15 memberships, get 15 people on your membership, and they paid for themselves.
Yeah, if they net positive 15
net
in the
positive,
next
they
month
could
or
be-
two,
Yeah,
you're
they could
laughing.
net positive probably in the first month to 6 weeks if you've trained them
Easy.
right. Easy.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, what are you waiting for?
Yeah. The thing about this, and I agree that we see this in the industry, we have forever. And honestly, the way that I would have approached this conversation has changed throughout the years. If you asked me 8 years ago, coaching in this conversation, we would actually sit down and do more of a calculation of affordability, and we would talk it through and make a plan to potentially move towards or whatever. And now, no, I'm just like, I don't know what we're even fucking talking about. Literally, if you don't hire certain pinnacle staff people, front desk sales team is being one of them, I don't know how you're going to scale up your business. Like, it's really just actually that simple. How are you going to do it? Really, the teacher is going to run your 30-person class and give a good first visit experience and talk to your people that are on their intro or first month and sell someone else a 10-pack? No, they're not.
And do this
They
with
can't. It's not even a fair ask. Yeah.
and do this with only 15 minutes between class. There's that one.
Right. And knowing that everyone shows up 5 minutes before, like, it's not realistic. So it just becomes immediately obvious that this isn't even a choice at some point in your business. I'm not saying day one in a small studio, but generally speaking, that moment where you really need a couple of good, like, one to start, and then like two will cover a lot of your schedule. Solid front desk customer service salespeople is way earlier than you think. And I don't know how you're going to scale up without it. I think it's a total mentality approach shift. The ROI on it is exponentially bigger, because the other thing that hasn't been said yet that's in here is the opportunity cost of your time as the owner. There are certain things that you, as the visionary and owner of the business, are the only person that can do it. You have to come up with the idea, you have to be creative, you have to build some of the back end planning for the business, etc. That all requires actual time, and it also requires energetic space. So if you don't have certain team members, where you don't have your primary funnel of sales working, unless you the owner are there, there's such an enormous opportunity cost that you're also having. It's hard to even calculate, because that means your energy is going to that, your time is going to that, and it's not going to these other things that you can't hire for. You can't farm out. You have to do it. So it's not just the wage of that person is insignificant versus the ROI on it if you start to do it correctly. Now, there are some things you have to do to make sure that that's true, but yeah.
So book is boot camp, yoga sales boot camp.
Book a yoga sales boot camp. Well, hence the question, the original thought of like getting to that conversation for sales. You know, I agree with Terry with what you're saying, that there's not going to be anything more powerful than us face-to-face having a conversation, right? Phone calls, like, pretty good. Text messages, okay. Emails, but like, I don't think there's an email that you can write that will help someone conclude that they should, like, what does that email have to say? Because it's so different per person. The only way to get to the real bottom of helping someone realize the transformation you're offering, that you can offer what they want, that et cetera, it is through an actual human interaction. That's
and those other
going to happen.
We talk about are still important, because we circling back to what we were talking about at the beginning. It's
Sure.
that top of mind awareness, because by the time when you're having those conversations with them, they've got the email, they've got the text, they got the phone model, the voicemail, they've seen all of that stuff. They've been interacting with the people at the front desk. They've been interacting with the teacher, right? So all of those are points of contact. All of those are creating that top of mind, so that when you do have that sales conversations, like, hey, Josh, you have been crushing it. Your intro is just about up. Let's get you set up on our membership. And oh, by the way, when you sign up before your intro ends, you save $20 a month. Or if you're on a direct to membership, then they won't cancel.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're just going to roll. Oh my gosh, Josh, you can't believe it. In 3 weeks, we're so excited to see you on the journey and how you feeling. Those are the things teed up with all that other electronic stuff that keep that top of mind awareness, which
they
is
keep them engaged and warm and like start the conversation, but they themselves fall short of the depth that's possible. Not that no one buys off of that stuff or that you should discredit its value, I guess is your point. 100%
right.
It works and you should put it in place. But yeah, it is interesting. We do have owners on occasion come to us and say like, oh, well, I just have to get this sales funnel in place. So I need to like write these 10 emails and put this automation together. And they spend money on the program for the automation. They spend time on writing the emails and filming a video that goes in there, and et cetera, but then don't want to hire a front desk person or don't go train a front desk person. Like that's incongruent behavior. We're looking for like some silver bullet that doesn't exist. It's not it's yes and. It's both of these things plus your effort over time to polish it. So
it's the red and the blue pill.
All right. I think it's it for today. Go sell some stuff. Get you and your team and all your plan around this stuff in order. Obviously, coming into the new year is the time to capitalize on it and to really, build up your studio even more in this next year. 2024 is going to be a prosperous year in the yoga world if you're getting this stuff together. So I'm excited for it. Webinar next week on websites. That's the starting point. That's the opening start of your funnel to get people in the doors in the first place. So don't miss that. You can go into the events tab in the Mighty Network and RSVP to it. You don't have to do that, but just then it will hit your calendar and everything else, and you know what's going on with it. Other than that, have a great weekend.
Bye, everybody. Go do some yoga.